kind of frustrating.
It's very frustrating. And even frustrating still, I go to do this illustrious podcast and my goddamn headphones break. And so
Oh, God.
I'm trying to look around and scramble around to find some headphones. And I cannot find them anywhere. And then I find a pair, and it's not working in the mixer, and I'm about ready to throw all the technology out the window, but I can't do that because it's my only contact with the outside world and humanity in general. So
now is not the right time for me to tell you that I'm a little drunk right now because I'm stressed the fuck out.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. We're going to be quite the pair tonight. I'm all fired up, and you're all drunked up, and wow, this is... I'm going to use...
2020!
Yeah, what? What'd you say?
It's 2020!
Yeah, it is. Ugh. So, long story short, I had to find a pair of old school 1980s style wrap around your entire dumb head.
The kind that go like around the base of your skull?
Absolutely. Head huggers.
Yeah!
Yeah, that's what I'm wearing right now. So, kicking it old school for real. Yo.
All right.
The fire flow, shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical, in the mitten where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow, you a tadpole. Feel the love, feel the rush, feel the buzz, let it brush ya. Bald eagle clutch.
Welcome to someone's favorite movie. I'm coming to you from the Pod Shack outside beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. My name is Randy, and with me is the man, the myth, the legend they call Tomko. What's up, sir?
I'm here. How you guys doing?
They're screaming hello. They're saying hello. They're doing the best they've ever been because they're hearing your dulcet tones.
I can feel the virtual wave through the podcast stadium.
Jesus. You think they'd do a wave for you, really?
I think so. I think with all the hours I've put into it, I think I deserve one wave.
Wow, that's a bit presumptuous. All the way around or a half-ass one?
Oh, it's going to come in spurts and it's going to break up halfway through the crowd, but it's going to count.
Okay. I suppose. I mean, you got to be a man of real renown to get a full circle of the drain doing the wave.
Come on. I'm not Kirk Gibson.
You are not Kirk Gibson. Lord, I wish you were. What a draw that. I wonder what Kirk Gibson's favorite movie is. Probably The Natural, I bet.
I could see that.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe
Bull Durham.
Maybe Bull Durham. Maybe he's more of a war movie guy. I could see that as well.
No.
No? Fine. Shoot down all my ideas. That's why you get top billing on this show, and I'm just the lonely sidekick. God damn it.
So what's going on tonight, sir?
Oh, tonight it's a Sam Peckinpod because we are covering both Straw Dogs and Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia.
One of the greatest movie titles of all time.
It really is. And I'm going to tell you something, Tomko. Right off the bat, I enjoyed both of these movies.
Yes. They're good movies, but I don't know if I would use the word enjoy.
Yeah. Well, yes. They have... I don't know. We'll get there. They have a certain darkness to them. Both of them do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're really heavy. And I'm going to say that both of these stuck with me for quite a long while. I had to really digest this. I had to take some probiotics, eat some prunes, really get this out of my system because it's stuck there. I had to
drink some more.
You had to drink some more. I mean, God, what a mess we are. Thanks a lot, Sam Peckinpah. Although I think Peckinpah would probably, I don't know, be proud of you for your drinking habits tonight?
I think he'd slap me because I'm not drinking enough.
And that's a good possibility. First things first, though, we do this little thing on the show called "What Are You Watching?" What have you been watching, Mr. Tomko, sir?
Well, I just watched the season finale of Dark Side of the Ring right before I got on the horn with you.
Nice. I saw that last night.
It's depressing.
It's very depressing.
So I had to balance that out with binge watching all 4 seasons of The Good Place, which is only kind of depressing because it's all about philosophy, death, and morals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've never seen it. I've heard good things.
It's probably the best thing Ted Danson's done since Cheers.
That's not a very lofty hill to climb.
Okay, but Cheers is at the top of the mountain.
Cheers is phenomenal. I last year, I think it was, or the year before, I got this wild hair up my bum to revisit Cheers, and I
holds up.
Oh, it holds up real well. I was shocked at how well it holds up. In fact, I couldn't believe it.
I mean, yeah, the clothes and the hair are looking kind of weird now, but the writing is top notch.
The writing is top notch. The humor is right there. You could air it today with updated hair, and everything would be okay.
Agreed. Kind of makes Friends look like a steaming pile of shit by comparison, if you ask me.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt. It was funny because, like, not too long ago, Steve Carell was joking around because I think he was asked the inevitable question about an Office reboot or whatever, and he said, "No, why don't we take the entire cast and just reboot Cheers?" And I was like, "That would be awesome. Do it."
I'd be there.
Yeah.
I would be there in a heartbeat.
That would be so good. Why wouldn't you do it?
Oh God, I love that show. Love that show so much.
Old Kevin can be Norm. Sam, of course, would be Steve Carell. Pam would be either Shelley Long or Kirstie Alley. I don't know.
I think she would be Kirstie Alley because they have the same kind of smarm to them.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Angela would be Rhea Perlman.
Yes.
Cliff, who would be Cliff? Rainn Wilson, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just gonna say.
And I think Frasier would have to go to Jim Halpert.
Now, this is going to be a deep pull.
Okay.
But is there a way that we can get Ricky Gervais to guest star as Andy? Or maybe Harry the Hat?
Yes, Harry the Hat. So Harry the Hat was Harry, what was his last name? I know it's
Harry Anderson.
Yes, from Night Court. And he was like a stand-up comedian and a real-life magician. And he made frequent appearances on the early seasons of Cheers. Harry the Hat.
As a con man, yeah.
Yeah, as a con man.
I could see Ricky Gervais doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So what have you been watching, sir?
Well, on your recommendation, I watched One Cut of the Dead.
Oh! Yes! I'm so glad you watched it. I've been dying to talk to somebody about this.
Okay. What were your thoughts on One Cut of the Dead, sir?
I walked into it completely blind. I just kind of heard about this movie by reputation.
Yeah.
And the first, would you say, half hour of it is a straight ahead zombie movie?
Yeah, it is a half hour because I was confused after that half hour. I don't think I want to give too much away, but after that half hour, I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is definitely a movie you don't want to spoil.
No.
I would say that it's a movie, a horror movie about horror movies is the only way I could describe it, but it's also pretty goddamn funny.
Yeah, it is. It's like a horror movie about filmmaking, and really there's 3 distinct parts to it.
Yes.
You got the first half hour that Tomko mentioned, a middle part that you're going to not want to pay attention to, but you should because it pays off in the end quite a bit. And then the final part is a straight up comedy.
Yes.
And the fact that all 3 of these things are blended together in a unique sort of mishmash that nobody's seen before is kind of amazing.
And when I first watched it, and especially that first half hour, there were things in there that, just from a filmmaking point of view, were really getting on my nerves.
Uh-huh.
As far as why they had certain edits that were taking so long before they cut to a different
Right.
angle or anything
Yeah.
like that. And it pays off. Just pay attention to everything. Watch it all the way through. It is probably the most unique. I don't even want to call it a horror movie, but it's definitely the most unique zombie movie I've seen in a long, long time.
I don't know what it is about Asian cinema these days, but they can really do some things with horror and especially zombie movies lately. Like Last Train to Busan is amazing too. That's
I still have not had a chance to watch that.
oh,
I keep
you need
meaning
to. Yeah, I mean that's it's a straight up zombie movie, but it's I mean it's zombies on a train. That's what it is.
You got me with zombies on a train, sir. I think I'm gonna have to watch that over Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, you definitely should. I mean, you have snakes on a plane. People love that. Put zombies on a train. There you go.
Sells itself, doesn't it?
It does sell itself. I saw, because I was inspired by all these Asian zombie movies, I saw a Japanese movie that I turned off halfway because it was so long, and I'm like, I'm over this. But it's called Versus. Came out in the early 2000s, and it's about this enchanted forest, basically, where people come back from the dead. That's where you get the zombies from. And this gang of criminals gets sprung from being transported to a prison. And basically wackiness ensues. But I will say this, there's zombies with guns. And I have never seen that before. Yeah, zombies with guns. What could be better than that? It's kind of slow and a little bit boring. If it was like an hour and a half, I would be all about it. But it's like over 2 hours, and it was just too much for me. I feel like it would be a great movie at like an hour and 25 minutes. I mean, really,
I might have to check out like some like I don't know, it's like a best of compilation on YouTube.
Yeah, you could probably find it, I think. I mean, really, the zombies with guns thing, that's what people are tuning in for.
Fuck yeah.
Lean into that, please. And also, I just finished getting through season 4 of Better Call Saul.
I haven't even started that. But I've been very happy with what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I went back from season 1 because it had been quite a while, and I'd even get through season 3 before. So over the last few weeks, because I've had nothing better to do, I've binged Better Call Saul, and I'm almost thinking that, in my opinion, I might like it better than Breaking Bad.
Oh, I don't know about that, sir.
I kind of dig the characters a little bit more.
I know. You're not the first person I've heard say that, but to me, just the overall arc of so many characters that you have in Breaking Bad, that is really hard to top, in my opinion.
I know. I know it's not a popular opinion. I mean, Breaking Bad...
It's a valid opinion, though.
Yeah. I mean, Breaking Bad is amazing and my favorite TV show, but Better Call Saul's getting up there. Either way, Vince Gilligan is a genius. So whatever he does next, I'll be on board for.
I keep meaning to try that, or at least even looking for that other show that he did with... God, I can't remember who it was with, but it was called Battle Creek. It was on CBS. It only lasted like half a season.
Yeah.
But it was just supposed to be really stupid, quirky, and it has the Michigan connection of major crimes in Battle Creek, which already sounds kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it's written by Vince Gilligan, so it's like, why didn't I watch this?
Yeah. I'm kind of curious as to why that didn't work, considering... I mean, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are both kind of quirky in a way too. So I kind of, I would be curious to watch it too to see what didn't work with it, or whether or not network TV audiences just weren't willing to give it a shot. Because I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad could have worked on freaking NBC or CBS or something.
Well, in all fairness, Breaking Bad barely eked its own survival on AMC. It wasn't until it was streaming on Netflix that it really took off.
Yeah, that's true too. That's how I discovered it. I was I was unemployed and looking for something to watch, and I was like, I'll try this. And in fact, I wasn't even into the first couple episodes, and I stuck with it. I'm glad I did, because it's definitely worth the journey.
Now, did you watch El Camino?
I did watch El Camino.
What were your thoughts on that?
I was satisfied with it. I know a lot of people were disappointed by the fact that it wasn't, I don't know, quote unquote, epic enough, I guess. But it felt like an extended episode of Breaking Bad. And I wasn't really.
I mean, it wasn't mind blowing.
No, but it wasn't awful at all.
A character standpoint of what happened with Jesse after the events of Breaking Bad, I felt very satisfied.
Yeah, I did too. I don't know what people expected. I think they expected Walter White to come back from the dead or to never have died in the first place or something, I guess.
Which would have been fucking stupid.
It would have been stupid. I mean, the show ended the way it should have ended. And after I watched El Camino, I was like, I could handle the adventures of Jesse Pinkman in Alaska. Because Lord knows he's not going to ride the straight and narrow for too long.
Honestly, I like the fact that they left it where they did. They left you just enough to leave your own imagination to run wild.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying they should do it, but
yeah,
I wanted more. So I guess that's
the best compliment you could possibly give to the finale of a season.
Yeah.
Or a series, I should say.
Yeah. And it seemed, I mean, he had like PTSD and everything. So,
oh yeah,
it really, I thought it did a good job. I really did.
Yeah, I was very, very happy with it.
It's funny we're talking about Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad because, honestly, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia tonally reminds me of that universe a little bit.
I could see that. Yeah.
Like, a lot of serious stuff happens, but there's also like a kind of lightheartedness, quirkiness.
There is definitely black humor in this movie.
Yeah, and just like Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, that movie, Alfredo Garcia just turns on a dime whenever it wants to.
I'd say the biggest difference between Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia and Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, those shows have antagonists that you can relate to, that you can root for. Alfredo Garcia is just filled with either bad people or at best pitiful people.
Yeah, that is a major difference. You're right.
Because I mean, the main character Benny, I didn't once feel bad for him. I didn't necessarily want to see him win the day. He just happened to be the slightly more sympathetic of two evils.
Yeah, it's funny when the movie started, I really didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
The movie starts with a man named El Jefe basically ordering the people in his town to search down this man named Alfredo Garcia and to bring his head back to El Jefe because he impregnated the boss's daughter.
Young teenage daughter,
yeah,
it's implied.
Yeah, and then fled, and so El Jefe wants him found, wants his head, $1 million reward, and then it shows all these cars tearing away and planes flying. I thought it was going to be like some sort of wacky caper movie, I guess.
No.
And
no.
I thought Alfredo Garcia was going to be like the main character, and he was going to be running from all these people.
Played by Jerry Lewis.
Yeah, I had no idea. I was completely wrong, by the way. Completely.
I mean, it reminds me of that old catchphrase for ECW. We're not for everyone, folks. This is a movie that is not for everyone. You have to have a certain dark sense of humor. You have to have maybe not an agreement, but at least a slight appreciation for macho bullshit. Because this movie is filled to the brim with macho bullshit.
And that was kind of a hallmark of Peckinpah's movies, wasn't it?
Very much so. That and the glorification of violence.
So much so, he was called Bloody Sam.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with the sentiments that he put in his movies. In fact, I will go so far as to say that I do not agree with the sentiments that he put in his movies. But you can't deny the fact that he was a very, very good craftsman when it comes to the language of film.
So I didn't really know anything about Sam Peckinpah other than the fact that I knew Tarantino was a fan.
Yeah, Tarantino definitely wears the Peckinpah influence on his sleeve.
Yeah, definitely the violence. And I mean, I guess Alfredo Garcia wouldn't be completely out of place in the Tarantino movie universe either.
No, I could definitely see Benny, the main character, smoking some red apple cigarettes.
Yeah, just hanging out with the Vega brothers or something.
Yeah.
So I was kind of interested in Sam Peckinpah because I had no clue about him, and I knew we were doing this. So I found some interviews with him. I mean,
Okay.
His big deal was he was an alcoholic, kind of liked the drugs quite a bit. If you saw him, he looked like he was aged about 10 years older than he actually was.
Yeah.
He actually looks a lot like the character of Benny in the movie,
Yes.
which was done on purpose. Apparently, Peckinpah even gave, what was it, Warren Oates is his name?
Yes, sir.
Some of Peckinpah's own clothes to wear and his sunglasses. Those are Peckinpah's glasses that he's wearing the entire movie.
And credit where credit's due, Benny looks like a cool motherfucker in this movie.
He does.
Maybe not completely in control as much as he would like to be, but he at least looks cool enough to fake it.
And it wasn't until I saw a picture of Sam Peckinpah and heard him talk, I was like, oh my God, that's Benny.
Yeah.
Because you look at him, he looks like Benny, but also you look at him and you hear the rumors that he's a drunk and whatever, and he's kind of gaunt, and you hear him speak, however, very, very well spoken, very eloquent, very confident in what he's saying. I found an interview where he talks about violence and he describes it as a sad poetry, which I thought was kind of awesome.
I can see that because I don't know if I would use the word poetry as much as I would use the word fetish. He seems enamored with violence.
Yeah, he said about himself, Bloody Sam was a changeover from dishonesty to at least looking at the fact that people do bleed and are hurt, but I am not responsible for the chainsaw, whatever its name is, or any other trash that has been put forth. So he draws a line in the sand that he's not the same as horror movies and the violence there.
I actually think that's fair because, again, he at least has compelling characters, if not sympathetic characters. He has them with at least well understood motivations. He knows how to place a camera. He knows how to edit a scene. Whereas a lot of slasher movies, as much as I enjoy them, let's face it, don't have the skill that Peckinpah had.
No, there's not a lot of nuance or subtlety or even metaphor other than this knife is a phallic symbol. Stab, stab, stab. That's about it. That's about as deep as it gets.
Now, I mean, it's kind of hard to describe the plot of this movie. It's a road movie. It's a crime caper, but not a lot happens in it other than a lot of really interesting character scenes, a lot of really good dialogue, but not a whole lot happens in it.
No, not at all. So it's about Benny, who is just a bartender, plays piano.
I thought he was like a piano player in the bar.
Yeah, I read an article that said that he was the actual owner of the bar, but I didn't get that from the movie. I don't know where they got it. He is an he was part of the U.S. Army at one point.
Mm-hmm.
He was in the war, which is important later because you're like, how is he doing all this? And then I was like, oh, yeah, he was in the Army. I guess that makes sense. But he's kind of a scumbag. And some articles had described him as going through life with $1.35 in one hand and an erection in the other.
Oh, I love that.
And boy, if that doesn't sum up his character and possibly the character of Sam Peckinpah himself.
Yeah.
So he is in this bar, and two white guys, a bar in Mexico, two white guys show up, and they're looking for Alfredo Garcia. Benny happens to know Alfredo Garcia because his girlfriend, Alita, had been fooling around with him. So he thinks he can track down old Alfredo Garcia, catch himself some extra bucks, and in the process maybe screw over his I don't know, rival for his girlfriend's affections, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that good old Alfredo Garcia got in a car accident and died. So it makes it all the more easier for Benny to cut off his head and bring it to these people that are willing to pay him $10,000, which is far less than the $1 million that was promised. And Benny is kind of a dummy. He thinks this is his way out for a better life. He seems to actually give a shit about Alita too. You realize it's kind of a love story, don't you? At one point,
it is, but it's not a pretty nice, feel-good love story. It's kind of like this just sad, depressing, codependent love story where they're almost like out to get each other. It almost feels like.
Yeah, a little bit. Although I will say that Alita seems to blindly love him for some reason, and I can't figure it out really.
Oh, Alita, you could do so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's a scene where they're underneath a tree and they're talking about what they're doing and whatever. And Alita asks Benny why Benny has never asked her to marry him. And apparently that scene was largely improvised.
Really? Because to me, that's the most human scene in the entire movie.
It absolutely is. That's what kind of sucked me in. Yeah, it was completely improvised. And Warren Oates, who plays Benny, had no idea that she was going to do this, that Peckinpah told her to just go off and he was going to roll. So when she asked Benny the character, why haven't you married me yet? Oates had no idea. So he just kind of said, I don't know, and started crying because he was moved by her performance. And he said later, there was no place to hide in that scene. So he hid his head in Vega's hair because he didn't, the actress that played Alita, he didn't want the crew to see him cry. Buried his head in Vega's hair and said, there's no place to hide in that scene. She had me. So then Benny actually proposes to her. That was all improvised.
All right, I officially like this movie even more now.
But then we get to the part that... So there's a flat tire, and instead of changing the tire like Benny wants, Alita's like, oh, let's have a romantic picnic under the stars. She brings her guitar out and singing and playing. And then out of nowhere, two guys on motorcycles come up. And that's never a good sign.
Now, you're skipping over something. When Benny and Alita were leaving their apartment, they were spotted by what looked to be like two gangsters who were following them. I kind of got the impression that the bikers were hired by these gangsters.
Oh, I did not. That might be true. Because they came out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
It's beside the point, though. Because
it really is.
You know something bad's going to happen.
And this comes to, I mean, the Sam Peckinpah cliche that just makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah, so of course one of the men, the one that's played by Chris Christopherson, takes her
Of all
off.
people.
Yeah, takes her off into the weeds with he's gonna rape her. And this really,
Well, I mean, this is something that and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, with Straw Dogs, but
yeah,
this is what really makes my skin crawl. It's bad enough that you're going to have a rape scene. That is horrible enough on its own. But when you're having it written where the lady who is being assaulted is a willing participant in it, that's where I kind of turn on Peckinpah.
yeah, because the scene is really interesting. Because at first, Christopherson cuts off her blouse, so she's topless, and then Alita just slaps him in the face twice, and he has no idea.
Belts her.
Yeah, he has no idea what to do. He's so shocked and couldn't believe this woman would stand up to him. So he walks away, and she follows him.
Yeah, that's where I gotta kind of tap out as far as my, I don't want to say admiration for Sam Peckinpah, but at least my acknowledgement of his writing skills. That's not cool.
It isn't cool. And we might as well flip over real quick because I don't want to talk about it twice. So in Straw Dogs, a similar thing happens. Straw Dogs is about an American man played by Dustin Hoffman goes back to his wife's hometown. His wife Amy is played by Susan George. They go back to her hometown, and he's a mathematician of some sort, and he's working on some complex problem. And they're renting a kind of an old farmhouse, and
well, they aren't renting it. Her father owns it.
Oh, okay.
Isn't it in like Cornwall, England, like some
yeah
far town out in the sticks of England?
Yeah, I don't know what it is with you, Tomko, and making me watch all these gloomy United Kingdom movies because it never turns out well. If you're a stranger and you go to one of these small towns, it's really bad. You either get burned by the Wicker Man or you turn into a monster.
Or you get attacked by a werewolf.
Yeah, I mean, it never turns out well.
Avoid England is what I'm saying.
You got to. Sorry, all our English listeners, but you ain't from America. So they go back to her hometown, and right off the bat, there's a lot of, she has
a history in that town.
She has a past, and her ex-boyfriend, who she has a history with. And the movie begins, Straw Dogs begins with the two main female characters in the movie being sexualized, and I mean, in fact, in one of the old posters I saw, movie posters, that's right on the stupid poster is a close-up.
Sex sells.
Yeah, a close-up of Susan George's chest. So Dustin Hoffman's character, David Warner, hires her old, I don't know, teenage childhood friends, whatever, including her old ex-boyfriend, to help fix up the garage and repairs around the house. And they are constantly just, I mean, if they were a Tex Avery cartoon, they'd all be wolves howling.
They're eye fucking her.
Yeah, they are. They
Not
are.
to be too blunt, but that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. And you get the sense at one point, I mean, so Amy goes to Dustin Hoffman's character and says, hey, these guys are doing this to me. I don't like it. And he's an intellectual. He doesn't really...
He's very sheepish.
Yeah, he doesn't like confrontation at all. And at one point, she even seems to antagonize it. She walks right by an open window without a top on and just stands there until her ex-boyfriend and a couple of his flunkies see her. It's problematic.
Now, why do you think she did that? Do you think she did that just to kind of fuck with the hired hands, or do you think she was ultimately trying to get some kind of reaction out of her husband?
I think
either way, it's a fucked up motivation.
It's a fucked up motivation. I think I don't know. That's the problem. It's very problematic, the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
I've been kind of struggling with how to talk about this movie because it's a well-made movie, but it is, not to use that catchphrase, it is problematic.
yeah. Well, Susan George, who was hired to play Amy, I saw an interview with her. She has her own YouTube channel for whatever reason. But she said of the audition process, she found out that she was cast in the movie when she went to Sam Peckinpah's office and she heard some arguing going on from inside the office. And she kind of peeked in, and Peckinpah was there, and Dustin Hoffman was there, and somebody else, I don't remember who, and they were all arguing. And then she kind of opened the door, and they all looked at her and said, hi, Amy, you got the part. And all their pants were down around their ankles. That's how she found out she got the part. If that isn't a disgusting display of I don't know what. Ugh.
Oh, 1970s, you rascal.
Yeah. And to her credit, she tells the story like it was the funniest thing ever, which I'm not sure would fly these days, but okay, cool. So at one point, that's
the best way to sum up this movie. Oh.
Yeah, at one point, David goes to the closet one night and finds their missing cat hanging there.
Yeah.
And Amy says they did that to prove that they can get into your bedroom anytime they want to. And she wants him to confront those guys. And he kind of says, okay.
Now, you can call me a pacifist, you can call me a pussy. I don't enjoy confrontation, so I can understand the spot that he's been put into on this.
Right. Yeah. Especially because his wife is like, you got to do this. You got to do this. So he tries to trick them into admitting they did something, and it doesn't work. Instead, he agrees to go duck hunting with them, which turns out to be a bad idea.
Yeah.
So while they go duck hunting, they kind of pull a practical joke, and leave him out there all by himself, leave him stranded. Meanwhile, the ex-boyfriend comes back and rapes Amy.
And that's where, again, I have to turn on Sam Peckinpah because of the way that he presented this scene.
Yep. And on that same interview I watched with Susan George, she said she played it exactly how Sam wanted it to be played. So she did what she was supposed to. Here's an old interview I found of him in Playboy magazine in 1972 talking about this. By the way, at one point in this interview, he says the character of Amy was asking for it. Thank you for that groan. That's the appropriate response. So Peckinpah says, Amy, the girl played by Susan George in the picture, is a young, uninformed, bitchy, hot-bodied little girl with a lot going on for her, but who hasn't grown up yet. That's the part. It wasn't an attempt to make a statement about women in general. That's what he said about.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm doing my best to look at this through the 1972 lens, and I just can't justify anything he's saying, doing, or showing in this movie.
No.
At least not in that scene.
Well, it gets even worse. He's asked about a critic from the New Yorker named Pauline Kael, who really had some issues with the rape scene because she kind of thinks that Peckinpah is implying that's what women are for, to be used and enjoyed. And Peckinpah said, well, Pauline, I trust that's part of it, but I'm not putting down all women in that scene. Amy is enjoying the experience, yes, at first. Doesn't Pauline Kael know anything about sex, dominating, and being dominated?
What part of getting slapped is enjoyable?
dominating and being dominated. The fantasy, too, of being taken by force is certainly one way people make love. There's no end to the fantasies of lovemaking, and this is one of them. Sure, Amy's enjoying it, at least with the first hombre who takes her. The second one is a bit more than she bargained for, but that's one of the prices she pays for playing her little game. There's always a price to play.
Fuck you, Peckinpah.
Yeah. Yup. Really bad. Really bad.
And again,
honestly, this scene was very, very uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
Simply because at a certain point, she does seem to be enjoying it. And I'm like, oh, you are sending the wrong message completely.
And again, it was, you said 1972?
Yes.
I'm trying not to be too judgmental, but I'm just glad that we as a society seem to be moving past that. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So rape and revenge movies used to be a big, big deal in Hollywood.
Yes. Which reminds me, I suggest we talk about I Spit on Your Grave at some point.
I could talk about it now if you want to.
No.
Okay.
That deserves its own episode, sir.
Yeah, probably. Okay, we'll put that on the list. Yeah, but rape and revenge used to be a big, big thing in Hollywood for the longest time. And, I mean, to a lesser extent, everybody loves a vigilante movie, but I don't understand why it's got to be the rape with the women that makes them want to take out the bad guys, you know?
I mean, I can understand that subset, if not necessarily agree with it.
Yeah.
My big objection is the fact that they showed a woman enjoying her own assault. Mm-hmm. That's where I draw the line.
To Peckinpah's point, when the second guy joins in, she does not enjoy that. But
true. But then to make matters worse, they kind of doubled down on it a little bit in that movie, where after that scene, Dustin Hoffman's character finally fires the hired hands. They try to go about their life as close to normal as possible.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He didn't fire him because of the rape. He never...
No, absolutely not.
He never knows about the rape. The rape essentially has no purpose in this movie that I can see. I tried to think about it so hard, and I tried to think up every possible reason why that was.
If anything, I'd say the rape scene takes away from the ultimate finale in the movie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The only motivation I can see is to establish that these are bad guys, I guess.
Yes.
And you could have done it in several other ways, really.
Oh, easily, yeah. I mean, they could have had him, instead of raping Dustin Hoffman's wife, they could have had him stealing property or sabotaging his work somehow or doing any number of things to undermine him as a grown man. This just feels, I mean, that scene just feels very juvenile. It feels kind of like a little kid who is just learning how to swear but doesn't know really how to do it.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. And at this point, I thought that was going to be, because I more or less knew what happened towards the end of the movie. I knew there was going to be a big standoff.
Don't skip over the thing that led to the standoff. It's been a couple weeks since I watched this movie, but basically Dustin Hoffman went to a church party that the whole town gathered for. Was it the daughter, the niece, the granddaughter of kind of like the head thug in town?
Yeah.
Was flirting with a dim-witted local urchin who they went off, they made out, and he got scared and accidentally choked her to death.
Yeah,
is kind of it does feel like victim blaming again in this movie.
he had a reputation for going after underage women.
Yes.
And before she goes off with him, she tries to flirt with Dustin
With
Hoffman's
David.
character.
Yes.
And
Yes.
right in front of his wife while his wife is sitting there. And she is suffering from PTSD because all the clowns, including the two that raped her, are at this party as well. The whole town is there.
Well, she decides that, she's had enough of the present company. She wants to leave early. They get in the car, they drive toward the home, and they happen to run over the dim-witted local who killed the young lady. They feel responsible for his injuries. They pack him up in the car, take him to the house, and are trying to nurse him back to health while they're waiting for medical attention. The head honcho in charge figures out that the girl is missing. They heard a rumor that this guy was last seen with her, and they eventually track him down to Dustin Hoffman in Susan George's house. And then the standoff happens.
Yeah, the standoff happens, and
Shit escalates pretty quickly.
very quickly, because Dustin Hoffman does not want to. He finally takes a stand.
In all honesty, I thought, for the most part, Dustin Hoffman was being pretty responsible. He does not want violence. He doesn't want to see anybody get hurt.
Yeah,
But then, again, the movie kind of takes another turn where it says that sometimes the only correct answer is violence, and I don't know if I can agree with that.
yeah. He says that this is my house. This is where I live. This is me. I will not allow violence against my house. He takes a stand.
For macho bullshit reasons, is a great motivation. It's a great line. It's a great scene. It's very well done.
It is very well done, because you also see Dustin Hoffman look at his wife and look at the guys who are still eyeballing her the whole time and kind of smirking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only time I got a sense that he felt like something had happened, or even if something didn't happen, maybe the potential is there for something to happen against his wife. And I think that was part of the motivation behind it. Not to mention the fact that all along she's been pushing and pushing and pushing him to man up, basically. And I think,
except at one point, she urges him to just give up and let the mob have this guy.
Yeah.
And let's face it, the guy is guilty as sin.
Oh, yeah.
But he still deserves his day in court.
Yeah, that was the big. So they try to break into the house, and Dustin Hoffman starts fending him off, Home Alone style.
Yes.
Lots of
yet another movie that Home Alone ripped off, if I may say so.
Yep. You heard it here first. Dustin Hoffman, Straw Dogs was the first Macaulay Culkin, Kevin McAllister.
It's not that far of a stretch, folks.
Nope. He's throwing hot, burning water on people, and
it wasn't water; it was oil.
It was oil.
That's even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when shit really gets crazy, because now, at a certain point, Dustin Hoffman takes a fireplace poker and just kills a man. And
while Scottish bagpipes are playing in the background, which is a traditional battle song for war, mind you.
And he continually hits the body with this poker over and over and over again. And Playboy magazine in that same interview asked Sam about the scene, because they said that Dustin Hoffman, David Sumner, seems to be enjoying himself, seems to be enjoying the violence. And I thought so too.
Yes, absolutely.
And Peckinpah says totally wrong. I don't know what movie you saw. There's a point in the middle of the siege when David almost throws up. He's so sick. And he says, go ahead, pull the trigger. He's sick of it, sick of himself, sick of the violence that he recognizes in himself. To stop real quick, I thought he was just being like confrontational when he said, go ahead, pull the trigger.
He was. He absolutely was. Peckinpah's full of shit in this interview.
Yeah, I thought it was just more macho bullshit is all I thought, but okay. I can't believe anyone can miss this in the movie. He's just used a poker to kill a man who's tried to kill him. He looks at what he's done with despair and absolute horror, and he doesn't care at that moment whether he lives or dies. And again, he's not despairing or anything with absolute horror, because once he takes care of all of them, murders them all, he says, Jesus, I got them all.
Got them all. Yeah,
and he smiles.
That's why I'm saying Peckinpah is full of shit.
Absolutely. So the men continue to break in. It comes down to one of the men that initially raped Amy tries to do it again, and the ex-boyfriend shoots that guy. And then David attacks him and puts a vintage bear trap over his head.
Yes, I was going to say, they showed that bear trap at the beginning of the movie when they were bringing it in and hanging it over the mantle. Perfect use of Chekhov's bear trap.
Yep. And it's made... David specifically asked how to set it, how it goes off, how to use it, etc. And it all comes back around.
Now, here's my main question. The guy whose head got stuck in the bear trap was Amy's ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
Don't you think that scene and the horror on Amy's face would have played so much better had they gotten rid of that rape scene?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yep. And in fact, I didn't watch it, but Straw Dogs was remade in 2011.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't. I'm proud of you for not watching that.
Yeah, usually I do, but this time I was like, nah. That one stars James Marsden and Kate Bosworth, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I read on Wikipedia, because that's all I did, I gather that there was in no way, shape, or form any sort of, I mean, they didn't split any hairs. She absolutely did not like that rape. And she was kind of on board with the bear trap over the head, because that's, that they had to include that. But she was on board with that. There's one final man that it tackles David and is kind of twisting him in a way that you think David's spine is going to break. And Amy's got a gun, and you're not sure what she's going to do. And David is pleading with her, shoot him. And she finally does. Do you think that marriage is over?
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, because as soon as all clear is established.
Was it over when they got there?
I think it was over before then, honestly. They definitely had a lot of animosity toward each other over the fact that David was kind of spineless. And, he kind of used this as an I'll show her moment.
Yeah. And,
he's driving the dim-witted local over to the hospital to get medical treatment. He says, the dimwit says to Dustin Hoffman, I don't know my way home. And he says, that's okay, neither do I. That to me tells me that the marriage is over.
Yeah. Yeah, he completely lost his way.
Now, what's your final thoughts on this movie? Because, I mean, this is a hard movie. I mean, it's been about 2 weeks since I watched it, and it's still a hard movie for me to digest.
Yes, it's still very heavy for me too. Like I said, it stuck with me for a while. I am gonna.
I kind of think that I'm thinking that was the point of all of it. It didn't want to give you any easy answers.
I'm gonna read one last thing from that interview, because Playboy magazine asked Peckinpah about that thing you just said about it's okay, I don't know either, not finding his way home.
Mm-hmm.
And Playboy says one critic saw a look of enjoyment on his face when he tells the halfwit he doesn't know his way home anymore. And Peckinpah says it's not enjoyment at all. Neither Dustin nor I interpreted it that way. The line was written while driving to location on the last day of shooting. David Warner had cued it off at rehearsal by saying, I don't know my way home. I turned to Dustin and said, and you don't either, and that's the whole point of the picture. Yes, he said, and I'll say it with a smile because the irony is too much for him to say it straight. Dustin wanted to do it that way, and he was right. David Sumner had recognized in himself the enormous suppressed violence that he had been living with, and once it had come out, there was no going back. You see, he really set the whole thing up. He could have stopped it any one of a dozen times. He was testing his wife. He was testing himself. He was maneuvering himself into a situation where he'd be forced to let the violence in himself out, as a lot of so-called pacifist and supposedly passive people do. I don't know about that either.
I don't. Again, I am not somebody who supports violence at all.
Yeah.
I go ahead and, like I said, call me a pacifist, call me a pussy. I sympathize with David as far as his motivations, but Peckinpah might have a point. Because sometimes you do have to defend yourself, but fuck, I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, for the most part, David Sumner is pretty passive throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
The only time he raises his voice really is against his wife, but even then, it's not like he's ever going to hit her or anything like that. They just get into a short little fight, and that's about it.
Part of me wants to condemn this movie specifically for that rape scene, but part of me also wants to say, hey, this is a very, very, very well-directed, well-shot, well-acted movie.
Yeah, it's very well done.
And there are some unpleasant points that have been made.
Yeah.
And again, nothing that I agree with, but it's worth discussing.
Yeah, after I finished watching it, I think I sent you a text, and I was like, boy, that was heavy or something like that.
Yeah.
Because really, I had to set it aside and just like sit there in silence for a minute and be like, oof. And then like for the next couple days after I watched it, I was still thinking about it today.
And I mean, that right there is a testament to the quality. I mean, most movies, let's face it, not just today, but for all time, most movies are disposable. You watch them and you kind of walk away and forget about them. You don't have anything to say about it, let alone think about it. That's not the case with this.
Yeah. Yeah. It does remind me quite a bit of The Wicker Man, by the way, Tomko.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Just the location, the aesthetics of it, and all of that. The outsider coming into a very closed community. Yeah, I could see that.
And in fact, when we were doing The Wicker Man, I told you that I confused The Wicker Man with Straw Dogs. I thought... Okay. You can listen to the episode way back in the archives.
I believe you. I absolutely believe you.
No, I was telling the listener, not you.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't calling you out. You calling me a liar, sir? I'll commit violence against your house. How dare you?
That's okay. I've got plenty of oil and 4 burners on my stove.
Damn it. I'm outclassed. As long as you don't have a bear trap, I'm good, I think.
Shit.
Yeah. I'm sure someone in your Coe family tree has one.
Oh, I'm sure.
Hunter Coe or something.
There is no Hunter Coe, but my wife's cousin's name is Hunter.
Oh, pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you said, let's watch The Wicker Man, it's one of my favorites, I was like, okay, cool. And I was thinking it was Straw Dogs. I was like, that's the one with Dustin Hoffman. And I started watching The Wicker Man. I'm like, I don't see Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. But you should listen to that episode, dear listeners. It's in the archives. Listen to it. The Wicker Man. Good stuff.
And another, I mean, very minor, non-important point, but Straw Dogs has one of the coolest movie posters ever. Yes. Where it has Dustin Hoffman just kind of having like 1,000-yard stare. He's wearing shattered glasses where the shards of his lens are just kind of resting on his cheek. Just a cool fucking picture.
Yeah, that's the main one. Like I said, I saw there's one with Amy's boobs in it. There's another one I saw that's got that same 1,000-yard stare, but it actually has a straw dog on fire in front of Dustin Hoffman too, which doesn't work as well. It kind of looks shitty.
No, I can't imagine that would.
No, it's pretty bad.
No, I mean, the great thing about that first one is just the simplicity. You're able to capture the entire mood of the whole film in that one image.
Yeah, and really that's all you need. Simplicity.
Yeah.
I remember the very first poster for Zach and Mary Make a Porno was just two stick.
Wasn't it like stick figures?
Yeah, it was two stick figures, and it was perfect. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I get it. It's about a boy and a girl. Perfect. Kevin Smith, boy, girl. Okay, I'm on board.
And honestly, it's one of his better movies.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, final thoughts on Sam Peckinpah, sir.
Well, we have to go back to Alfredo Garcia.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Where did we leave off? We left off with Chris Christopherson raping his girlfriend.
Yes. We took a big tangent, but
yes,
we got through Straw Dogs. After that, they go to the town where Alfredo Garcia is buried. And on the way there, Benny has changed quite a bit because he saw Alita kissing Chris Christopherson, and he fucking kills them. He shoots them.
Can you blame him? Chris Christopherson always looks kind of grungy.
He does look grungy for sure, but he's got the soul of a crooner, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but he has the beard of shag carpet.
Yes, he does. That would be his rap name. If he was ever a rapper, he would be Shag Carpet.
Shaggy beard.
Yep. So Benny straight up just murders the guy, and after that, there seems to be a change in Benny's character. He's a little bit more intense and kind of mean to Alita, where before he was, I don't know,
kind of sweet in a sadistic kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, not anybody you bring home to mom, but
no.
At least he was somewhat civil. And he finally tells her what they're going to do, that he's going to cut off the head of Alfredo Garcia and sell it for money, and then they're going to live their lives. And Alita is very, very unhappy with this. Very unhappy with this. She's not on board.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. And Benny's whole rationale for doing this, he says the church cuts off the feet, fingers, and any other goddamn thing from the saints, don't they? Well, what the hell? Alfredo's our saint. He's the saint of our money, and I'm going to borrow a piece of him.
That's kind of a stretch there, Benny.
Kind of a stretch. However, that's one of the things I like about this movie is the dialogue.
Yes.
Really good dialogue. No matter how ridiculous his motivations are and his rationales, dialogue's pretty good. Like it quite a bit. So they go to Alfredo Garcia's hometown, and they find where he's buried, and that night, Benny goes off to do the job and gets hit from behind with a shovel, wakes up buried alive, and he discovers he's on top of Alita. And this scene is brilliantly acted, I thought.
Yeah.
He digs himself out of the grave and notices Alita's there and starts to dig her out, and she's clearly dead, and he just
slaps the piss out of her.
Yeah, he tries to
For
wake
good
her
measure.
up. Yeah, and it's just not happening. There's so much anguish in that scene. He's so pained, and you finally realize that, oh shit, he really did care about that woman. He really wanted to not only change his life, change hers.
He wanted to provide for her, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to live his life out with this woman in happiness and live happily ever after. And he after that, he frickin' snaps.
Yeah, he gets a bag, gets the head, and drives to El Jefe.
Well, no, first of all, the head's gone because he looks. The head's gone.
Oh,
somebody had taken
right.
it, and he's just in a blind rage, and he gets in his car. And some poor villager is looking at this man, and Benny just yells at him. He said, "Look at me with your goddamn fucking eyes," and I laughed so hard. I don't know. I don't know, something about that line delivery. I mean, he entered the town with everything. He had the girl of his dreams, the one he wanted to spend his life with, this future full of money and happiness, and then he leaves with nothing. So he's out for revenge. He catches up with the guys that took the head And it was the guys from earlier that he had seen, the ones that you suspected might have hired the bikers or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. And he just takes them out. And not only does he take them out, he straight up enjoys pumping a few dozen rounds in one of the bodies, even though the man's already dead.
And also, yeah, I mean, the guy's clearly dead, but when he gets shot, he reacts.
Yeah. And then he starts actively talking to the head as he's driving around and swagging off his bottle of tequila. I'll tell you what, that bottle of tequila got a lot of mileage.
It did.
It did. I can't believe it lasted that long.
Now, one thing about this movie that I actually kind of really thought was impressive is you could feel the Mexican heat in this movie.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
just in the sweat that the characters are exhibiting, but you could feel the smell and the stench coming out of that bag.
Yeah, everything seemed like dirty, and
yes,
all the scenes were bright and full of sun, and I think that helps your impression of the heat quite a bit.
Mm.
Benny gets stopped again, and the Garcia family tries to get the head back so they can bury it where it belongs. And the two white guys from the beginning of the movie who put Benny up to this in the first place start taking out the entire Garcia family with smiles on their faces, including a woman holding a child. That real
Peckinpah.
Oh, Peckinpah. Yeah. And then Benny takes them out, blah, blah, blah. Eventually he takes the head to El Jefe himself so he can get that $1 million because he finds out the reward is much greater. And the entire time he's on a bloody warpath. The girl is there with Alfredo Garcia's son, El Jefe's grandson. And Benny pulls a gun on El Jefe, and his daughter says, shoot him. So Benny does. And then it doesn't end well for Benny.
No, it doesn't. I mean, he made it a lot further than I ever expected him to. I'll give him that much.
He crashes out of the gate of the town with the $1 million and Alfredo Garcia's head, because I think he's planning on taking it back to the town, isn't he, and reburying it or something?
That was the impression I got. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then he would live the rest of his life miserable is the takeaway I got. But he doesn't make it that far. He gets gunned down outside the gates. And the very last frame of the movie is a close-up of a gun barrel. That's all you see.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it just ends.
And then it just ends, yeah. Very interesting.
Again, I don't know what to feel. It is extremely well-made sleaze.
Yeah. Yeah. It's man, the difference.
I mean, there's plenty to appreciate in both of these movies, but you can't, or at least I can't, subscribe to their doctrine.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a popular movie that this would be like, and I can't think of one at all, really.
It's kind of like Tarantino without the cool aspect.
Yeah, kind of like a Reservoir Dogs type of deal, I guess. Without the winking pop culture references. And
I mean, these are movies that should be watched. They should be talked about, but they shouldn't be emulated. I think that's the way I would describe it.
I definitely like both of them.
They are, they're very good movies.
Mm-hmm. And they both stick with me.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that you can have an hour-long conversation about these movies is testament to their quality.
Yeah. And I found myself really liking the character of Benny, too, even though he was a shitbag.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are plenty of movies where the antagonist... I mean, hell, fuck. All gangster movies have antagonists that are scumbags. That doesn't mean that they're bad movies.
I actually like the character of Benny a lot more than I did the character of Dustin Hoffman's David Sumner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, I mean, on the other hand, Alfredo Garcia just kind of feels more like an exploitation movie, whereas Straw Dogs feels like it's trying to say something.
Yeah, Straw Dogs feels a little bit more Hollywood, doesn't it?
Really, I kind of felt that Straw Dogs felt more art house.
I don't know. I get I get the grindhouse feel from Alfredo Garcia quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's exactly what he was trying to go for.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I get Straw Dogs just feel maybe because it's the more. I don't know.
It's the more serious of the two by far.
Maybe it's just because it's the more well known of the two, perhaps, that I think that. Just because I've heard of that for years, Straw Dogs, and I didn't really know of Alfredo Garcia until you said, "Let's watch." You know.
Well, with a name like "Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia," you're gonna watch that fucking movie.
Yeah, that's a great title.
It is.
I have. These were the first two Peckinpah movies that I've ever seen.
You never seen The Wild Bunch?
No, never saw The Wild Bunch.
Oh my god, The Wild Bunch is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I knew he did The Wild Bunch. I mean, what I knew of him, I knew Tarantino was a big fan. I knew that violence was kind of his shtick. I think
who Peckinpah reminds me of? Like the flip side of the coin of Sergio Leone.
Oh, okay.
Sergio Leone was a very, 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 very good filmmaker, and his movies also played heavily on the theme of violence. But the reason why it's the flip side of it is with Leone, it was all about the build up to violence, and then the actual violent scenes were over, real quick. Whereas Peckinpah, the violent scenes seem to come out of nowhere, and he literally slows the camera down so you linger on these awful images.
Mm-hmm. I will say, watching these movies, I got the sense of where the ending of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood came from.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
Because that movie is, for the most part, pretty... I mean, there was not a whole lot of violence whatsoever, really, until the very end. And then it just goes from 0 to 100.
I kind of look at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as a character-driven fairy tale with an amazingly violent ending.
Yeah, that's a good description. Yeah. That's the thing about like Tarantino. He's got that. It's hard to pin down that voice that he has, but like I said, he's got a violent approach, but his characters are very quirky and lighthearted, and his movies seem to live in a world of magical realism. Like, it's real life, but skewed just a little bit.
Yeah, and another thing, I mean, with Peckinpah and Tarantino, if their characters weren't as interesting and watchable as they were, the movies would just completely fall apart.
Yeah, you're right. Which one did you like? Do you like better, Straw Dogs or Alfredo Garcia?
Alfredo Garcia is the more fun.
Yeah,
if that's the way to describe it of the two.
No, I would say that too. Yeah,
but I would say that Straw Dogs is the better put together of the two.
Yeah, I would agree. But personally, I think I like Alfredo Garcia a little bit better.
Yeah, I think if I were to, sit down with some friends in a case of beer, I would definitely pop on Alfredo Garcia before I would Straw Dogs any day. Yeah. Any day of the week.
And it's completely because it's that fun aspect to it. There's nothing fun about Straw Dogs, really.
Now, just out of curiosity, did you recognize Warren Oates from any other movies?
No, I don't think so.
Did you ever watch Stripes?
You know what? A long time ago. So
he was the drill instructor in Stripes, the one that told Francis to lighten up.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's been, I don't know, 15 years since I've seen Stripes, but that's
a great fucking movie.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
All right. So do we have anything else to say about the weird world of Sam Peckinpah?
I think we did a great job of covering it. I think we did a good job this episode.
I think we did a pretty damn good job, actually.
Why don't you pat yourself on the back, Tomko? Excellent. Tomko, do you have Amazon Prime now? Did I see that?
I actually do have.
You do?
Sure.
You have Amazon Prime now. That's great. Let's do
yes.
We're going to get this damn podcast back on track and do it every week again, or try to. Damn it. So next time, we're going to do a little movie called Never Too Young to Die.
Oh,
that
sounds sleazy enough.
It's John Stamos as a gymnastics secret agent.
Oh.
Against Gene Simmons.
Oh, fuck.
As a transvestite.
How did you do that?
You
made every other word worse than the previous two.
It's one of my talents. That's why
Fuck.
That's why I'm single. Well, I have a girlfriend, but that's why it took me so long to find someone, because every other word is just a demotion.
Randy, when you aren't talking about movies, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, you can find me on the Twitter at mretailslave. You can find me on the Facebook.com at Miserable Retail Slave. You can join our group, which you should join our group. There's also a page if you want to do that. Or you can head on over to the miserableretailslave.com, which will be redesigned and put to use finally after years and years and years.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
I know, right? Oh, when Miserable Retail Slave first started, it was just a website, and I wrote about pop culture and movies and stuff, and I got a bunch of my friends to do it. So there's going to be a little bit return of that, as well as promote this show and my big dumb comedy show, Miserable Retail Slave. So, synergy.
As far as myself, you can find me on Twitter at The Drunken Dork. On Facebook, you can find me at Jake and Tom Conquer the World. Those are two pages all in support of a little show called Jake and Tom Conquer the World. It's been described as the conversations you overhear from two drunken dorks at the other end of the bar. If you want to listen to us, you can find us pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast, as well as geeksworldwide.com.
It's the worst of the worst this year, this goddamn year. Ugh.
That's why we're all drinking, folks.
Yeah. You drove Tomco to drink 2020, you son of a bitch. Next week, Never Too Young to Die. It's a lighthearted, you're going to have fun, Tomco. It's a lot more lighthearted than what you just put me through, goddammit.
Oh, okay. Again, that's a low bar to jump over, sir.
I will tell you this. I just want to titillate you a little bit, Tomco.
Oh?
There's no rape scenes whatsoever, but there is a sex scene with John Stamos, and boy, is it steamy.
Do we get to see John Stamos's buns?
No. I'm sorry. Uncle Jesse, no buns.
Sorry, I heard titillate and I automatically thought of John Stamos' ass.
Have mercy. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.